Hi friends, today we are painting these beautiful vibrant beach huts. And we sort of, when you sketch them, think about sketching them on a 1 point perspective with your focal point on the left hand side. That's why they're going smaller and smaller. And we're using ultramarine blue, French vermilion, and then also mixing these two colors to give us this purple color. And then for the top parts of the houses, I'm using warm sepia, I'm using burnt sienna, and that's for the doors as well, and ultramarine blue for the ocean. And also mixing in a little bit of forest green for the ocean as well. So first ultramarine for my sky, I've painted only with water, and now I'm just adding in a few darker areas and sort of going around where I want my clouds to be. So painting it very wet on wet and just dabbing the color on gives us nice soft clouds in the sky. Just a bit of texture. Okay, let that dry. Use a hair dryer or a hot heat gun. Okay, need a bit more of my lemon yellow. So I'm going to use a bit of yellow ochre for the beach area, and I'm also using bit of lemon yellow and phthalo green for my trees or these big large shrubs that's in between each of my beach huts. So the top part of it I'm painting a lot lighter because that's where your light is catching it, and then between the houses you'll have more shadows. So I'm just doing these blotches, dabbing it on, letting the colors blend together a little bit. So darker at the bottom, lighter at the top, and then just dropping in some of that darker color as well. So it's phthalo green, forest green, and some lemon yellow is what I'm using for my trees. So lemon yellow at the top, going with the phthalo green, and then as you get closer to the bottom, you're going to use that forest green for a shadow. Now, like with your houses, your trees also get a little bit smaller as you get closer to the left-hand side where your focal point is. Okay, let's start with the ocean. So here, especially at the back, you can use a mixture of a little bit of that forest green and ultramarine, and you can add a little bit of Payne's grey into it as well. Just give you a darker ocean at the back. And then we're going to go lighter as we go to the front. So adding more of the ultramarine as we go more forward. Um, Remember to leave gaps for where you want the white to be of the waves rolling in. And then also be mindful that your waves cast a shadow. That's why I do them a bit darker at the back and then lighter as we go towards that white areas. Now moving on to our beach with yellow ochre, I'm just going to paint a layer of yellow ochre on, and then you can use warm sepia for a couple of shadows where your huts will be. So while this is all still wet, I'm adding in that darker brown, the warm sepia, to give a couple of shadows underneath each of the huts. Now let's make sure everything is properly dried, and then we can move on to painting our huts. You can choose any colors you'd like. I changed between those three colors, so ultramarine blue, French vermilion, and the purple that I mixed with the ultramarine and the French vermilion. So paint your huts and have some fun with it. Now for the shadows in my houses, I'm doing the side of the house for each one, painting a Payne's grey layer on there so that it's nice and dark and showing a bit of depth. I'll do the same on the roofs as well. On the inner part of the roof that we can see, I'll make those ones Payne's grey as well. The other part of the roof I am painting with warm sepia and also that burnt sienna. So trying to get a bit of variation in color, using both colors, not mixing them in a palette, but painting them next to each other on the roof. You might first do a layer of burnt sienna and then while that's wet, drop in some warm sepia just to add a bit of effect and texture to your roof. So here you can see I'm painting burnt sienna and then I get that warm sepia and I just do a couple of lines of that. So again, painting burnt sienna and dropping in some of the darker colors. And that just gives some texture. And I'll do the exact same thing with the doors as well. You can also drop in a little bit of Payne's grey just to make it a bit darker if you'd like. So experiment, do your roofs a little bit different. There I'm going in with the Payne's grey, couple of lines on the roof, just adding some depth to it. Now I've just turned this around so I can paint a bit easier on this side. And I'm doing the same as with the roofs, I'm doing the same to the doors. So painting it first burnt sienna and then I'll add some texture with the warm sepia and a little bit of Payne's grey as well. So just a couple of lines in each door while it's still a bit wet so that you can get it to bleed together. Now let's finish this off with some highlights. So using my white pencil, I'm just going to add a couple of highlights into the roof, on the doors, wherever you'd like, wherever you want to highlight something or um, soften it even. You can use a bit of that pencil just to add some highlights into your painting. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Thank you for following along with me and happy painting.